Hi everyone, my name is Rob Canzaneri and I want to welcome everyone to the Data Architecture Virtual Chapter. Today we have Ike Ellis. He's going to be giving a presentation, SQL Skills, Tips and Tricks. If anyone has questions, you can email me or you can email Ike and we'll be glad to answer your emails. I want to thank PASS for letting us have this virtual chapter and giving us the ability to have these meetings online, which is really nice. I'm going to go over a few little things going on. PASS has a lot of events.
So Rob, we can't see your screen.
Oh, you can't? Oh, bummer. Oh, hold on one second. Let's see.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Can you see the screen now, Ike?
Yep.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I don't know if everyone got to hear me speak, but I'll start again. I want to thank everyone for attending the Data Architecture Virtual Chapter. Today we have Ike Ellis. He's going to give a presentation on SQL Server tips and tricks. I want to thank PASS for letting us have this opportunity to have virtual meetings. It's a great opportunity to have people come in and learn more about SQL Server. PASS has numbers of events, lots of events, and there's a few coming up in February. You can see they're going to have a SQL Saturday in Cleveland and also in Tampa on the 22nd. They're also putting on a business analytics conference, which sounds great. So if you have an opportunity to attend it, I think you would love it. So you know, it's going to be in California this year, and okay. So this meeting is recorded, and what I'm going to do right now is start the meeting up. Ike has been, I met him at Charlotte, and and we talked and learned and talked about SQL, and I asked him if he'd be willing to give the presentation, and he said he would. So I really want to thank Ike for doing this today. Ike, I'm going to switch it over to your screen now, okay?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Okay, can you see the presentation? Let's see, what screen is being shared?
I can see your PowerPoint.
Perfect, so you can see the PowerPoint. Okay, great. And do you see, does it leak over? It seems like it might leak over, but if it's just the PowerPoint, that's good.
I see a little bit of your other screen, like your files right now.
That's weird. So I feel like there's a problem with the resolution, but if the, I'm not sure how to solve that. Let's see. I wonder if I can go smaller real quick. So, I don't know what to do about that. You know what? Maybe if I go over to this monitor, we'll be better off. Can you see the other monitor now?
Yes, I see another monitor with a golf terrain.
Okay, great. All right, so that's awesome. So what I'm going to do is, and I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I'm going to hopefully you can see that. All right, is that good?
It's perfect. I can see the screen. Now on the right, it's a little bit, it's missing a little bit to the right of the screen. I don't know if you can.
Okay, well, if there's a problem, I'll just stop me and we'll go. Okay, sorry
okay,
for the
sure.
technical issues, guys. Hey, guys, I want to go really quickly. My name is Ike Ellis, and I'm an MVP, and I'm starting a business I'm excited about called Crafting Bites with a couple of my MVP buddies. We're just a software development shop. I'm the main SQL course author for Develop Mentor and SQL instructor. And but most importantly, for you, I'm the virtual chapter leader for the SQL Pass book readers. And what we are is just a book club. And right now we're reading a book on Hadoop for the next 3 months. So if you'd like to read about Hadoop, join us. After Hadoop, we might do maybe another BI book, maybe a visualization book like a Stephen Few book or something like that. So if you like to read SQL books and you want to be with your friends, come join us at that virtual chapter. So SQL is kind of a weird thing right now. I think SQL has hit what we call the long tail. What I mean by that is it's just an enormous amount of features that we have in SQL Server. And I promise you, I've never been to an organization that uses every single one of these features. You know, it's more like a menu where people are like, well, I like analysis services and integration services, but I don't really like MDX, so I want to use tabular models, so I'll use DAX. Or maybe what they say is, I really like PowerShell and I like T-SQL, but I don't really want to learn maybe the WMI, or I don't want to learn Power Pivot. And so there's so much about SQL Server to learn that that's kind of where this presentation came from. I decided I was just going to kind of pick pieces out of SQL Server and show you some tips about those pieces, and hopefully you'll just pick some tips up. You'll say, oh, well, I didn't know much about integration services, and I didn't know this was the right way to do it, or I didn't know a lot about reporting services. So the point of this session is that we have just a whole bunch of disconnected 3 to 5 minute tips with demos in each one. I have about 20 prepared. Actually, I have about 50 prepared, but if we can get through 20, I'd be super excited about that. The other cool thing about this is the tips are unrelated to each other. So if you guys are eating lunch and you got to go to the bathroom or something, feel free to go to the bathroom, come back. You know, you can come in and out of this as you at will. You can go check your email or come back to this. And basically, I expect you to get distracted. Just stay logged in and keep looking, because maybe you'll learn something.
Ike, I'm getting a few questions here. Your screen, like I said, is just a little bit off. It's about 20% off to the right. I don't know if we can make any adjustments, maybe, or.
I'm not sure if I can at this point without, like, I can try to drop my screen resolution down a little bit and see if that will help. Maybe down to, like, let's try that. I'm not sure if that will help or if that will mess up.
Ooh, I don't know if that helped. It kind of even made it worse, I think.
It did.
Yeah.
See, that's my concern. So maybe if I go back to my primary monitor and share my primary monitor, it'll feel better to you guys. I'm not sure. Is it better to see the whole screen and get a little bit of, you know?
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of comments. Yeah, it looks better. So I think you're good to go. Oh, one person, well, I'm getting several looks better. So
okay, we'll just stick with that for now, and if it doesn't work, we'll work something out. Okay. All right. So tip number 1, SSIS for the colorblind. So real quick, SSIS is really awesome, and let me just show you what SSIS looks like really quickly. So if you're opening up SSIS, you're probably used to seeing things like this, where you see like this kind of like workflow going through. And notice that a success arrow in SSIS is green, and a failure arrow is red. And if you're colorblind, that might be kind of tough to see. So there's an option here, Tools, Options. And I know that option board is kind of jumbled for some reason because my resolution changed, but it says Show Precedent Constraint Labels, and where that is it's under Options, Business Intelligence Designers General, and you'll see Show Precedent Constraint Labels, and click OK, and that just added that success right here. So, you know, colorblindness is super common. It affects roughly about 10% of us, I've heard, and red-green colorblindness is by far the most common of that. So helping people out with colorblindness is always a great thing. Okay, that's tip 1. So tip number 2 is 5 minutes on report formatting is 10 times more impressive. You know, it doesn't take much time, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes on report design, and all of a sudden you can have a kind of an ugly report turn into a pretty report, a pretty nice report. So this is reporting services. And this is kind of a typical customer report here. And if I took me 5 minutes to build, right? If I click preview here, you can kind of see my report. And I didn't spend a lot of time on coloring. But if you spend just a little bit of time on coloring, you can do some kind of neat things. The first thing I like to use Morgfile. I don't know if probably when you guys do Google searches, if you guys want an image of like a tree, you just type in tree, you go to images, and then you see trees here. And that's fine. You guys can use these images. But the problem with these images is they come in all kinds of resolutions, and you know, some of them are pretty terrible. Some of them have watermarks on them. But if you want to see, that's misspelled. It's Morgfile. There we go. If you want images with higher quality control, use Morgfile instead of a Google image search. So in this case, if I type in tree, I'll get a very consistent look. And some of these trees are pretty nice, but I know this seems kind of funny to you, but what you can do once you see a good tree that you like, I don't see any trees that I like there. So you know what I'm going to do? I like the images of a piano, so let me throw in a piano here. So let's look at a good piano. That's a good one. This kind of, I know it looks kind of ugly here, but so that piano has some pretty colors and distinct colors. So what I'll do is we'll just go ahead and save that image, and we'll go ahead and put it on my desktop real quick. And then what I can do, now that I've used Morgfile, is I can just add an image from my toolbox. So we'll just throw the, excuse me, let's, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add a row right above, and then throw the image in here. And then it says, well, what image do you want? And I'll just import, and I'll grab it from my desktop, and I'll click OK. And now let's just go ahead and make that a little bit bigger right here. Okay, so bear with me. I know it looks ugly, but we're going to make it better in just a second. So let's go ahead and merge those cells, grab that. Then we can go ahead and delete this bar, push the whole thing up. Now imagine this was your company logo, and you wanted to do some color matching in the report. Well, what you can do is we can go back to this image. See how this image has a JPEG URL? So I'm going to click on that JPEG URL, and then we could use something called Lavish Bootstrap. And Lavish Bootstrap is pretty amazing. Here's what Lavish does. It allows me to throw in a JPEG, go Lavish, and it takes that image and it peels it apart and shows me the hex of the colors that are in that image. And look at that A right there. Do you see that A is that hex? And if I go back to my report, I can do something like right here. I can, in my properties, I can say, let's make my back color that same color as the A. And if I go back, maybe I like the color of the key shadow. I can make that the header color in the report. Excuse me. So let's make that back color that header shadow. And now when I preview the report, it just kind of, I know that seems kind of silly, but imagine that like Rob was just telling me that he works for Blue Cross Blue Shield, so he could take his logo and color match it using Lavish. Once he finds a JPEG that he likes, go to Lavish, paste it, and it's going to tell him what colors are in that logo that he can use for any reporting or anything like that. Okay, so that's tip number 2. Let's do another one. All right. Oh, here's a life tip. Start 2014 with a jar and fill it with notes of good things that happen. So every time a good thing happens to you, put it on a note, put it in the jar, and next New Year's Eve, open the jar, and I bet you'll have really fond memories of the year as you kind of review that with your loved ones. Tip number 3, the right way to find hardware performance problems. So there's a cool thing that you can do with Profiler and with Performance Monitor. So here's Performance Monitor, and we know Performance Monitor, right? We know this kind of chart where we can look at percent processor time, and you're looking at system performance here, and you can just click Add, and you can look at hardware. So Performance Monitor is great for monitoring, you know, the big 4, right? The big 4 are memory, processor, disk I/O, and network I/O, and it's just great for seeing how your system is running. But you can also, you know, monitor SQL transactions per second, or batches per second, or cache hit. Buffer hit cache ratio, or really important SQL counters that we know and love. And so inside Performance Monitor, we can create a data collector set. Now, one thing, I created one called Tracing for a Problem, and I just want to show you that when you create this data collector set to monitor your hardware data, there's one thing you want to do, and that is under stop condition, make sure that it goes for about 10, 15, 20 minutes, or however long you're trying to monitor for something. Make sure that it stays running. By default, it will only stay running for a minute. So what I'm going to do is just right-click on this and start. And then I'm going to go into Profiler, and we know Profiler, so I'm going to just start a new trace in Profiler, and I'll call it, Demo2, and I'll save it to a file, and we'll save it, Tracing for a Problem, Demo2. That probably works. Let's see, is that right? I want to put it in perf logs. There we go, demo 2 in perf logs. We'll save that. Then we could talk about event selection, but typically I usually only like to do the completed events when I monitor. That gives me cool things like duration and things like that. And then I can go ahead and just click run. And now I'm running. And now in Management Studio, what I want to do is just kind of maybe generate some type of load, right? So I'm just going to generate, this is a Cartesian product right here. So that Cartesian product, is going to be kind of a problem, right? Okay, once I've done that, I go back into Performance Monitor, right-click and stop it. And then I go back into Profiler, and I stop that. Now there's a bug. What I want to do is I want to click Import Performance Data, but it won't let me unless I close the window and then open it again. So I'm going to open that trace file again. It was this demo 2 that you saw. And now I file Import Performance Data. And now what I can do is I can open up that tracing for problems, and it's this one, I think, this last one, 2014, January 30th, number 5. Grab that, and then I can see, you know what, I'm really interested in percent processor time, just like you saw me on the chart before, and I click OK. And now I've tied in my profiler trace, which you guys know what profiler does. It just monitors SQL and tells you what transactions are submitted and running against it, how long they took. And then it adds that hardware data to it. So if on percent processor time, if I say, why did it spike there, or why did it spike there, it highlights the SQL query that caused the spike. And I know you can't see this from my resolution, but there's that Cartesian product. See how easy it was to find the Cartesian product. I say, that concerned me. That's what was running at the time. That was the batch completed at the time. And that was the SQL statement. So now I can kind of begin my debugging, see what's causing the exact hardware problem that I'm concerned with. Okay. Tip number 4. Oh, here's a life hack. So if you want a presentation, take the average age of the people in your audience and divide by 2 and use that as your font size. So if the average age is 36, you can use, a 15, 16, 17 font size. But if the average age is 50, you want a 25 font size. So if your average age is 200, here's what a 100 font size looks like. But that's just a quick presentation tip. Okay. This is something I realize that you guys are all SQL architects, but I'm amazed at how many heaps are in the database. And the reason why I'm always amazed as a consultant is because you guys don't create your own tables, right? You guys have development groups that create tables. And sometimes it's hard to keep up. I find that most DBAs are overworked and understaffed. And so you might have a few hundred databases that you're monitoring right now, which is fine, but sometimes it's really good to know where your heaps are. I ran this. The reason why I added this tip is because I ran this on a software package that has 1,500 active users on it every day, and I found that 80% of their tables were heaps. So just a really quick and easy query to figure out where you have heaps. So next thing, tip number 6, the proper way to run an SSIS package. So we go into SSIS. So let's go back to Solution Explorer, and you see I have package 2, I have package 1, I have this SSIS for the colorblind that I showed you a second ago. And if I want to run an SSIS package, I've got a lot of ways to run one. I can run one here using this VCR play button right up here, right? I ran this session. I kind of talked about a VCR play button to a bunch of college-age kids, and they kind of all looked at me like, VCR? Like, what's that? Anyway, this YouTube play button is what I should say. So you can click this, right? Or you can go to SSI, or you can go to debug, and you can say start debugging, right? And my question is, if you do those two things, which SSIS package is actually going to run here? The answer is, it's whichever one is set as the startup package. So it doesn't matter if I'm in package 1 or I'm in SSIS for the colorblind. If I click play, package 2 will run. And the problem with package 2 running is this very first thing that SSIS does in just about 80% of the packages that you create in SSIS, you're going to have truncate table. So if you run the wrong package and you stop it, the very first thing you're going to do is clear tables out. and then you're going to have to sit and wait for it to repopulate while you go run the write package. So the point of this tip is don't use this arrow. Don't use the debug command. The way you run an SSIS package is you right-click and you click Execute Package. And no matter if you want to run this, right-click Execute Package. That's the only way that SSIS packages should be run inside Visual Studio. Don't rely on the set as startup object. You're gonna frustrate yourself, I promise you. Okay. Oh, here's another visualization tip I threw in at the last minute. As a consultant, I see a lot of dashboards, and this is kind of a very typical dashboard that I see. See all the colors here where they're like, we're going to have bar charts, we're going to have some line charts, we're going to have a pie chart, we're going to have a gauge. You know, I think gauges are very bad. I think they waste a lot of screen space. Oh, are you there, Rob?
Yeah, I'm still here.
You have a question?
I do actually have a couple.
Yeah.
I was kind of holding off till you took a good break, and now's a good time. Okay. One question, let me get back to it, is going back to SQL Profiler.
Yeah.
Alex asked me about running during a particular time. So he wants asking about when can he schedule it to run during a particular time.
During the heat of the day. Yeah. So if you want, this isn't really a profiler session, but I can give you kind of my top 10 tips on profilers really quick since you brought it up. So I'm going to open up Notepad right here just so I can freeform. The first step is don't profile from the server you're running from. So that what you're trying to do is avoid the observer effect, right? So we don't want to put too high a load on it. So don't profile from the server that you want to monitor because that's a major problem. So always profile from a workstation. 2 is don't profile to a table. Always profile to a file. And 3, profile for a long time during the heat of the day. So what that means is you want 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's usually the heat. You know, 10 to get people into work for the location that you're profiling, and then you know you want to get them before they leave early, which sometimes they start leaving around 4. So yeah, get it during the heat so you can kind of get a very good gauge of what's running. What other questions?
That's all the ones I kind of see right now. Well,
okay, all right.
I'll get back to you when I see more.
Awesome. All right, awesome. Okay, so I see these dashboards, and they use colors, and they use gauges, and they're very noisy. They look nice. I think that a lot of colors look nice, but too many colors are overwhelming to your users. So whether you're designing a report or a dashboard, use colors judiciously because in nature, colors do 2 things. They entice or they warn. And like I've been backpacking a lot. I was just in Honduras backpacking through the jungle. And anytime you see something colorful, it's probably trying to poison you. So for users, if they see too much color like this dashboard, it's overwhelming to them, and they're likely to not even use it or find it useful. So Stephen Few likes his dashboards that look like this, dashboards that have mild colors, and when they do flash something red, it's because there's a warning here, and you need to know something as bad is happening, and we need to get on it right now. But if there's no warning, keep colors very simple and calm. Which brings me to Color Brewer. So Color Brewer is made by a woman named Cynthia Brewer who does visualization and coloring for a living. And look at this. What she's done here is if I have a number of data classes, like I've got 6 different things I want to visualize, look, I can visualize 6 different things using these hex colors in my reporting and dashboards right now without resulting to red or blue or pink or fuchsia or any overwhelming color, and then that allows me to use red when something really bad has happened or use a bright color if I need to catch their attention. So be a little calmer with the colors on the dashboards, and I think what you'll find is that your users will think that a dashboard created like this will be far more useful to them than one created like this. Also notice no gauges. Gauges are pretty useless. Take up a lot of screen space. Don't actually show an awful lot of useful information. Okay. Tip number 7, here's a Transact SQL tip. So I see a lot of concatenation. Let me go ahead and run this script. New query. Okay. So I'm just going to quick run an update SQL statement. Okay. Now, look, if I do a select star from customers, I want you to notice a few things. Notice that like contact name is here. Notice that contact title is here. Notice that city is here. And if you scroll down, look at this record 15 has a null in it. So if I want to create like an address line for an envelope, and I want to concatenate contact name, contact title, and maybe city, if I do that and I run, I get some great data here, but then when I hit record 15, I get a null. Because when you concatenate a null returns. So that's kind of a hassle, and that's why a lot of us use this is null statement right here. But the problem with is null is it gets ugly fast, but it does work, but you have to do it on everything. Because like if you're concatenating 15 things, figuring out where the null is, I mean, that is a lot of work. So you just end up is nulling everything.
Hey, Ike?
Yeah.
Do you have like a zoom it maybe? Or
I do. Does it work? And will that work?
Well, we'll see. Huh?
I don't know. So that was control. Did zoom it work for you?
Oh, yes. We can read that.
Okay, great. Okay. So there's the is null. And then this is concat. This is new to SQL 2012. So what concat does is it allows you to just take a whole bunch of varchar fields and strings and concatenate them together. And if there's a null in there, it just returns empty strings. So when you execute, you get the same results you would get before, but let's go to that hairy line 15. See line 15? No contact title, right? Right there. And it just concatenates and it doesn't return null. It just concatenates without the null. So anyway, concat super useful. It's worth using if you haven't used it already. Okay, that's tip 7. Oh, here's a life tip. So if I backpack a lot. You just heard me say I backpacked in Honduras. I go offline for like a week or two at a time. And I love news. Like my girlfriend is huge into she sets up global health programs, so we're always missing out on stuff. So what you can do is you can go to Wikipedia, and if you've been gone for a week or a month, just search the week or month you were gone. Like if I go, like in November, I was in Honduras, November 2013. Look, it just tells me everything that happened, all the main stories for the whole month in just an easy-to-read fashion. I can just click on what I want to learn more about. So you don't have to miss any news cycles anymore. Okay. How to search schema, tip number 8. So schema is kind of a pain in the butt because a lot of you I know are like, you've got hundreds of databases. People are like, hey, Ike, where's that customer ID coming from? And so one way we can search schema, it's built into SSMS, and that is we can just hit F6. And what F6 does is it brings up, or excuse me, F7. What F7 does is it just brings up Object Explorer details. And Object Explorer details is super useful because it lets me just type in like a customer field and you know, I can search through, you know, where my customers are. So I don't know why I'm not getting customers right now because, oh, no matches found in AdventureWorks. Okay, why don't we look at T-SQL and do customer? We should see a few. No? How about percent? So you can put wildcards in here. Percent cust percent. Okay, here we go. So that's F7, and F7 shows me anything that has cust in the name of it. So this stored procedure has cust, and this table has cust. And if I right-click, I can view dependencies. And it will show me what dependencies are on that stored procedure or that table. And if I right-click also, I can synchronize, and it will show me inside Object Explorer. So that's pretty useful. Now, here's the problem with Object Explorer details. It doesn't do columns. And you know what's funny to me? It's like 90% of what I want are columns. So what I like to use is a tool by Redgate called SQL Search. And SQL Search lets me put cust in. And if I click Enter, it does give me columns. And not only does it give me columns, but it also shows me the exact object definition. So I can just kind of click on it and see, you know, the actual definition. And I can do the same thing with Object Explorer where I click Object Explorer and it takes me right to the get cust store procedure. So I can kind of play around with it. Now, I don't show you tools that you have to pay for. So just to kind of show you, let's do Redgate SQL Search. It's completely free. You can use this tool right now. See? It's completely free. See that?
I have a
Completely
question.
free.
Is this just for this is for all SQL servers, not just 2012, right?
Yeah, this is for all SQL servers. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Okay, so search schema through SQL Search. Just download it, use it. There's no hidden thing here. Redgate just makes the tool for free, and it's super easy to find the column you're looking for or the view or store procedure or something like that. Makes it much easier. If you want to write it in Transact SQL, though, you can just use object definition, and not object name. I don't know why I wrote that, but this is the exact query is definition from sys.all SQL modules, but you can also use the object definition function if you'd like. Okay, so windowing functions are pretty cool. This is another thing that I don't see people use as often as they ought to, and I think they're really neat. So let me just show you really quickly windowing functions. That's my, what tip are we on right now? Tip number 9, and we're about halfway through. We might get through 20. Wouldn't that be great? I know I'm talking fast, but I really want to get through all of them. So just to kind of show you how windowing functions works, imagine that your boss asked you, I want a query, I want a report that shows me my customers, the freight that they've spent per order, and the total freight per customer, by customer, in one report. And so you're thinking, okay, well, I'll just do that in Transact SQL. And imagine, I want you to remember all the way back to when you were brand new to SQL Server, how you would have written that query. Like, I've taught a lot of people Transact SQL, and I watch them do the same mistake every time, which tells me that if everyone is making the same mistake, it's not a problem with the programmer or the person. It's a problem with the language. And I think windowing functions kind of solves that kind of core problem with the language. So if your boss came to you and said, I want to see customer ID, freight, and total freight by customer in one query, you would have written the query, okay, you would have started, okay, let's get customer ID and freight, and that would have given you data, that looks like this, right? Okay. And then you would have said, okay, I should be able to just sum the freight, right? That's all I want to do is customer ID, freight, and then sum the freight. And so you execute that, and it says, oh, we've never seen this before, right? Cust ID is invalid in the select list because it's not contained in either an aggregate or a group by. We've seen that before. So if we're new to SQL, we're like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to add a group by here. And so the group by kind of looks like this, right? There's cust ID here and a group by here, and you run that, and you get data that you want. You want this data. Cust ID 1 has freight of 225. Cust ID 6 has freight of 168. Perfect. But remember, you want the detail back into it, so you add freight back into your query. And when you run that query, you get, uh-oh, freight is invalid in the select list because it is not contained in either an aggregate function or a group by. That's a major problem. So what we do is we then say, oh, well, then I'll just add freight to the group by. That's what I want to do. That's what every new SQL developer does. And what does that do? It gives me data that's completely useless when I do that, right? So what I end up doing is I teach myself common table expressions, and I do the grouping in the common table expression, and then I join it. So what I'm doing is from line 24 down here to line 38, I put that sum in the common table expression, and then I join it in my orders, and now I get the results that I want. But it required me learning CTEs in order to do that. But look at that. That's good data, right? That means customer ID 1 has detail freight $29 and total freight $225. That's valid. That's good data, and that's what I wanted. It just took, 15 lines of code in order to do that. And you get some benefits, like all of a sudden that CTE is reusable. You can use it to do things like find out the percentage of freight that each line item gave us, right? Because we can take that total freight value and figure out that $30, of $225 equals about 13% of my total freight is that one order. And that's good reuse when we use a CTE. But what would be even better, and I want you to remember this, is remember when we went back to what we wanted to do originally all those years ago when we learned T-SQL the first time. We just want code that looks like this, really simple. And that's where windowing functions gives us something great. All you have to do with the windowing function is you have to say, okay, you want to sum it? What do you want to sum it by? That's it. That's what you wanted to do when you first started learning. That's why windowing functions are so great. Look, it's the exact same results that you had before, but you're able to specify, what you're grouping without a group by function. And then if you look at, that's what? 4 lines of code instead of using that CT. Same result, but 4 lines of code, much cleaner. The intent of what you're doing is much more clear to the developer and to anybody reading that query. And if you want to reuse it, you can reuse it. And here's doing that freight percentage. But now instead of 15 lines, we're doing it in 5 lines of code, just like we wanted. Very simple code in order to do that. So windowing functions are powerful. They can do an awful lot. But one of the things I think that gets overlooked is that they let us do things the way we wanted to do them when we were brand new learning. Okay, if you haven't played around with Visual Studio or SQL Server Data Tools in a while, the 2013 just came out. I don't know if you guys have seen this yet because SQL's always behind in Visual Studio, but it's got this kind of cool black formatting now, and it's worth kind of playing with. But one of my favorite features is up here. It's brand new. It's called Spotlight. And remember, if somebody said, hey, Ike, I want to enable line numbers, you're like going through here and options, and you're like searching through 100 different things to find out where line numbers are. Well, here you can go to Spotlight Search in Visual Studio 2013 and just type in line numbers, and then just click on the first thing that comes up, and look, line numbers right here, comes up by default right there, right? Okay, pretty neat. So we have something to look forward to when 2014 comes out and we get all the new cool tools in 2013 Visual Studio, hopefully. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, here's a presentation tip. Guess what? White text with black outline can be read over any color on any image. So if you're having trouble getting your text to show up when you do a presentation, just make it white text and a black outline, and it'll be much prettier. Tip number 11. Any question? Rob, I think I heard you.
Oh, I think we're okay. A lot of
good.
people are writing that they want to see more tips. So.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, no, they want to see, they're interested in all the tips. So.
Oh, good. They like it. Okay,
yeah.
Good. Okay. All right. So, listen, I was in a presentation by Grant. So Grant works for Redgate. You guys know Grant. He's a fantastic. He does performance mainly, right? But he's a great MVP and speaks a lot. And Grant said, "Look, you have 2 choices. You can either get good at boring, repetitive tasks, or you can get good at PowerShell." And when he said that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that is a great way to put it. Like, I love that." And who wants to get good at boring, repetitive tasks? I mean, every DBA has something that they do all the time that they just hate doing. And so it's worth learning PowerShell. Take the 2 weeks it takes to learn PowerShell and learn it. And the reason, like, I even have a really simple PowerShell script here. It's just right here that I put on my desktop. And let me just show you my PowerShell script. It's really simple. I'll just right-click and edit it. And what this does is it looks in my event log, and it looks for anything that has SQL in the title and whether or not it was an error. So if it has SQL and it's an error, write it out for me. And I can do this remotely. I can use a remote CMD shell command, and I can do this on every single server I have. Like if I have 15 servers, I can run one PowerShell statement, and if I just kind of run with PowerShell, look, this is looking in the last 24 hours for anything that has SQL in it, or 48 hours it looks like. And if I run this remotely on every server I have, I can just double-click this on my desktop, and I can see any error message related to SQL across all my servers in about 2 seconds. So 5 lines of code in PowerShell saves me hours and hours of repetitive task work. And it's really worth learning. So I think you should learn it. That's tip number 11. By the way, the code for doing that PowerShell command is just in my slide deck, and I'll post my slide deck on SlideShare so you guys get all this stuff, or maybe I'll put it on my blog. But just I'll give it to Rob too if he's got like something he wants to use to get it out to you guys.
I'll put a link on our website to your blog, and people can then get to your blog and download the slide deck. I'm actually getting a lot of questions right now because people are very interested in reviewing the slide deck. So thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, yeah, you bet. Okay. So, and my question is, who adds more value to their company or their customers? The person who's good at repetitive tasks or the person good at PowerShell? Who gets paid more? That's the question. Who gets paid more? People who do repetitive tasks really well or people who do PowerShell? Let me tell you, I did a project for an unnamed customer because I'm under NDA that used PowerShell to bring up availability groups with 16 disks each, 2-node availability groups with a listener, so that they could elastically expand anytime they wanted. When they decided that they wanted a new availability group, total fault tolerant, with 16 terabytes per node and a listener, it took them 11 minutes from the time they decided to do that to the time it was completed, just using PowerShell scripts to bring everything up online for them. So, and they're just bringing all sorts of servers online all the time, and they can tear them down ad hoc too using another, couple pages of PowerShell commands. Okay, tip number 12, tempdb configuration. So a lot of people have misconfigured tempdbs. They only have one data file. Now you only want one log file, and I only ever one log file, but we're talking about data files here. Tempdb, particularly if you use snapshot isolation, is always under intense pressure. Now I bet if you and I were in the same room, you could tell me a lot of things that use tempdb. Temporary tables, table variables, triggers. Anytime SQL needs workspace for large queries. If your server's under high load, I can almost guarantee it's under high tempdb load. So a really good thing to do is to add files to your tempdb database. And the rule of thumb is add one file for every 4 logical processors. You have 16 processors, 16 cores, that's 4 files, right? And if that doesn't alleviate your pressure, then try to go to 2 to 1. So you have 16 cores, go to 8 files. It used to be that they said 1 to 1, but that's only in the very rare case. Now, in order to take advantage of tempdb load balancing, you need to make sure that every file is the same size. So you either need to use trace flag 1117 or you need to turn auto grow off on your tempdb files so that when you do grow them, you're growing them all together. Every file needs to grow to be the same size together. But if you do that, sometimes it's like turning a switch on your SQL server and tempdb just comes alive and all of a sudden things just start performing great. Here's a travel tip. If you're in the winter right now, delayed flights, airports shutting down, travel with the surge protector. You are going to be a hero at the airport if you bring that surge protector out of your backpack and just let anybody plug in. You see a cute girl with her iPhone and it looks like she's looking for a cord. You say, hey, young lady, come over here and plug in at my surge protector. Now you've got an excuse to talk to her. Anyway, travel tip, make sure you do that. Tip 13, Prettify. So Steve Jones's website, SQL Server Central, has a great tool called Prettify. Let me just show you a quick query real quick. So I'm going to go here, new query, and this is code. I've seen this code before. Just to kind of show you, it's just a select from a subquery. And if you go down, it looks like it's joining on a whole bunch of subqueries. Do you see that? So this looks like pretty good formatted code, doesn't it? And you might not even think twice about this code. But if I go to SQL Server Central Prettifier, SQL Server Prettifier, it's the first link, and I just paste that code in, same code, right? And I just say, please correct the indenting and prettify, we're going to learn something. We're going to learn that it isn't just a bunch of subqueries joined together. They're nested subqueries. And that's significantly different logically, isn't it? And you would want to know that, but you would never know it if it were misformatted. So 2 seconds to prettify SQL code will show you some bugs that you will just illuminate to you. Another thing I love about the prettifier also is it gives you the source HTML. For those of you who are bloggers and you want this kind of pretty select, you want that function to be kind of the pinkish color, right? You want literals to be red. You can just throw it in the prettifier, put SQL source HTML, and then throw that into your blog post, and your blog post will look so pretty people will think you're like a genius. Execute SQL scripts over multiple servers is super easy. Look, I don't see this used often enough, but it's really, really cool. So under registered servers, you can save every server you manage. I mean, just doing that alone is really useful. So if you have 15 different servers that you manage, throw them all into registered servers, and you don't have to go connecting and hunting for credentials and all the nonsense that we do all the time. But one of the coolest things that you can do here, and this is, by the way, if you can't see, it's under here. Oh, excuse me. Let me go back to my main screen. Okay, it's right here under registered servers, right? Where I've got this large group here, right? Okay. One of the coolest things I can do is I can right-click and I can say new query. And I can just say select star from sys.databases and execute. And it executed that query across all of my servers, and it added this column called server name. So now if I scroll down, I can see the server name that responded to that query. So it fanned out that query across all my servers, and it responded to me. Really useful way to get results from a whole bunch of servers without having to connect to them one at a time. Life is so easy with the dates table. That's tip number 15. I love a good dates table. So let me just show you the benefits of a dates table. If your boss came to you and said, hey, I want to know my sales for the first Monday of the month. The first Monday of the month? Oh my gosh, if I wanted to do that in a CTE, I kid you not, I've written this code. It looks like this. See the mod 7s at the end? And if I use this CTE and execute it, it works great. Look, first Monday of the month. But now if they want first Tuesday or first Sunday or last Saturday, I got to go in and figure out what I was doing. Does this code right here look maintainable to you? Does that look maintainable to you? It does not look maintainable to me. So the dates table is so great. Look, and I've got one at AdventureWorks, my DW AdventureWorks table. It's called dim date. Data warehouse guys have been using dates tables for years, but transactional guys are only now coming onto it. So what I've got, if I just select star from dim date, what you're seeing, excuse me. Oh, I'm in the wrong query window. Let me come up here and just new query here. Okay, select star from dim date, and what you're seeing is the date. See that 1/1/2005 is broken up. That's like a Saturday. That's all persisted, right? Day number of month is 1, day number of year is 1, week number is 1, it's January. What year is it? Oh, it's 2005. Well, why do we want a date table with every date that we need? Well, we can do really cool stuff in it, like this query. Give me the month, give me the minimum date where the day of the week is a Monday and the calendar year is 2010. And when I execute that, it says, oh, you want 2010's first Monday? For January, that was January 4th. For April, that was April 5th. For October, that was October 4th. That is maintainable. I can look at that query and I know exactly what they were looking for. And I can look at the results and very easily figure out what was going on there. If we want to change that to the last Saturday, we can easily do that. So dates table, populated dates table. If you ever want to know how to do that, it's on my blog. Super easy. Oh, here's a life tip. If you ever see a motorcyclist tap his helmet, it means there's a cop. Usually he's telling another motorcyclist but you might as well benefit. So if you ever see a guy tap his helmet, slow down, there's a cop up ahead. Try cast. Let's avoid some terrible casting errors. So I've got another query for you. So new query. Okay. So I'm just going to create a table 1 and throw some values into it. Okay. And now I want to cast. And what happens when you cast is you say conversion failed when converting varchar value Ike to data type int. Oh, I hate this error. What caused this? What line of my code gave me a conversion error? Imagine this was a query that was 300 lines long and I had joins and subqueries and CTEs, and I'm trying to figure out which one's giving me a conversion error. That's why cast is so terrible. Try cast is great. Try cast gives you all the results, and when there's a casting error, it just gives you a null. Like, I don't know what to do. There's a cast problem in there. And then I can look at the rest of the columns in my query and kind of do some deduction to figure out why that thing wasn't converting the way I thought it would. At least then it gives me, is this a one-time casting problem, or is this a casting problem through like my entire result set? So I can kind of figure out what I'm going to do to clean it. Try cast. New with SQL 2012. Super useful. Cast was so terrible. Okay. Never reinvent the wheel. Oh, yeah. So look, this is a free tool that they do sell it. It's called SQL Sharp. You guys know what the CLR is, right? The Common Language Runtime, where I can have CLR store procedures. This guy, Solomon, the dude's awesome. I have never met this guy, but he's my LinkedIn friend. And all he does is this. He just writes these SQL Sharp CLR functions. And if you go to the documentation, you can just kind of look at the PDF. And if you can think of the function you want, he probably wrote it. Like, how many of you wish that SQL did regular expressions? How many of you wish that it did better string comparisons or better way to find out how to split, you want to split a string up into a tabular form, or you want to figure out if a string is numeric or not, or, any time where you thought SQL had a terrible function, he probably wrote it for you. And for $200 if you want all of them, but most of them are free. Most of the good ones are free. Solomon loves Twitter, so he's got all sorts of stuff in Twitter too. But anyway, I can't go into everything this thing will do, but there's no reason to write code to do this in T-SQL when the CLR, particularly with string manipulation, the CLR is so much faster than Transact SQL and so much better. And he wrote it. I've never really had a problem with any of the code he wrote. Like, here's code to format dates according to cultural values, whether we want Japanese dates or we want different European dates or something like that. So I threw his SQL CLR command in my T-SQL 2012 database, and then I execute it. And look at all these date formats that they gave me. Here, I'll zoom in. I hope that's right in Japanese. I'm not sure that that's right, but Solomon did it for us, and for free. You can't beat it. And then I would pay the $250 for it just because he's a lone guy. He's not a big software company. He's done great work, and a lot of those functions are super useful. Okay. Save scripts for easy access. That's another thing that I often see, that people don't really like to use it, but you can use your Solution Explorer, and your queries get saved. And so it's a much easier way. If you wanted to name stuff, like if I said, hey, I want to name this date format, now it's saved in this Solution Explorer here. So rather than, I see people kind of, I don't know why that's so wide. Okay, I see people kind of like in here, they're like, which one is it? And that's like a terrible interface, right? Just use Solution Explorer to kind of go through all your scripts and save them with names, and then you can have if you have a lot of the same SQL scripts you're running constantly, this is a good way of organizing them. Oh, here's my life tip on focusing. This is a mind map that I did not make. I found it on Reddit. And a lot of us are on the internet too much, and we're probably on Reddit too much, or Facebook, or Hacker News, or whatever our poison is. We're not accomplishing as much as we want to accomplish. And I'm not going to walk you through this mind map, but this is a good way of just kind of detoxing off of email and focusing on getting the important things done. And that way, at the end of your day, you can look back at your task list and say, well, at least I did the most important 3 things I wanted to do today. And I didn't just feel like I was fighting fires the entire time. Tip number 19, enforce business rules in the database. So this is an interesting demo, and a lot of people don't know that SQL works this way, but I'm going to drop those 2 tables. And now I'm just going to create this table, table 1. And in table 1, I'm going to add a check constraint. And we know what check constraints are, right? It enforces that column 2 is between 10 and 20. And then I'm going to insert some values. And I'm going to create table 2 without the check constraint. And I'm going to create add some values to table 2. And now the only reason why I want to do this is I want to run a query with the actual execution plan. So when I execute it, look at table scans, hash match join, right? If this was a lot of data, this would be expensive. But look what happens on the select. If I say table 1 column 2 is 30, that's outside the check constraint. So I execute it, and it says constant scan, constraint violation, and then done, right? Super fast, done super quick. I could have joined 50 tables here, and because this join on the and had a constraint violation, nothing coming back, right? That's the amazing thing about constraints. When people say, where does business logic go? We don't want to put business logic in a database. Sometimes when you put business logic in your database, particularly with constraints, you get a huge performance gain, and it's worth doing on the performance gain alone. So I know, yeah.
Yeah, can you zoom in on that on the constraint, because they wanted to take a look at the code. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. And the code looks like this,
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. You bet. I'm sorry about the resolution, guys. I hope you guys are still enjoying it. Okay, so last tip is my tip on logging and my tip on reporting. And look, we've done 20. I told you I had 50. I wasn't lying. I've got so many here. But so reporting. I see this as a mistake all the time. And that is that, well, here, let me tell you guys a story. So I went into a Fortune 500 company, a very large one. You guys have all used their products. And the CEO said, we have 750 reports just for the executive team. I want you to delete all but 15 of them. And I said, why? That sounds crazy to me. And here's what I didn't know. He had just been embarrassed. He'd walked into his board of directors with some data, and two of his members of the board of directors caught that his data was not consistent with data he had reported a month earlier. And he was embarrassed. And I don't know if you know, but there's nothing more fierce than the anger of an executive who's just been embarrassed. So he went to his reporting team, his BI team, and he said, why are these inconsistent? And they said, well, it's just so hard. We don't know when you're running reports, and it's just so hard to keep these reports consistent. And he said, make them all consistent. No report gets created without them being consistent. And he said, okay, we need to hire 5 more people to do that. And not only that, but now it's going to take us maybe a month per report rather than 3 or 4 days. And he said, that's unacceptable. Let me see these reports. So as he was looking through 750 reports, he noticed that there was a ton of overlap. He was like, these are the same reports just with 4 different columns or different sort orders or different coloring. That's ridiculous. Consolidate all of these. And he told his executives, don't ask for reports when one is good enough. Just modify the one that's good enough. And so this created an interesting project for me because he found that it was easier to keep 15 things consistent than it was to keep 750 things consistent. Now I'll tell you the results. The results were we couldn't get down to 15, but we did get down to 50, which meant that my entire job there, I didn't create a single report. I deleted 700 reports for them. And now what did that do? What that did was some unexpected benefits. Their time to create new reports was 3 hours instead of 4 days because they didn't have to map it to their existing reports. And what they did on the reports is every single report had a footer called Report Owner. And that way that you knew the developer of the report and you knew the business person that requested it. And anytime they found a report that was good enough that just needed 4 modifications, they would go to the owner of the report and they would say, can we use your report and just have modifications? And rather than creating a new report, which would bring the wrath of the CEO, they were much more negotiable on modifying existing reports so that it worked for everybody. And see, here's the thing. Any boat owner will tell you that every time you create something new, you're creating an asset that requires management and money. And that is not a good thing. We don't want 750 reports where no one uses them. You know, the CEO had a good point. He said, I promise you only 20 of these reports get run on a monthly basis. And you know what? He was pretty close. He was pretty close to being accurate. It was about 50 reports got ran on a monthly basis. So my point is, look at your audit logs in reporting services. This is just SQL Server Reporting Services gives you this. Every single time you create a report, it doesn't matter if it's Tableau or SQL Server or Excel, have the ability to audit whether or not they're looking at it. That is essential to report creation. This is why I don't like it when PDFs get emailed to business users. Because the minute you email a PDF, you've lost control of it. See, there's a very common pattern in reporting, and that is people have a business problem. They freak out about it. They panic. They order 30 reports to get their hands around the business problem. They get their hands around it in about 6 weeks to 3 months. And then once their hands are around it, they never look at those reports again. But they don't bother telling IT that those reports are unneeded anymore. And so the reason why we're auditing, the reason why my final tip is audit every report is because every single time you create a report, I promise you there's an expiration date. There's a point where that report is no longer needed. The business will evolve past it. And so we need to know when to retire it. We cannot keep reports in perpetuity. The expense of maintaining it is just too high. So look at your audit logs. Don't embed PDFs into emails. Instead, embed a hot link so that you can audit it. Make sure that if you're going to dump reports on a subscription that you have a way of auditing every single one of that audit log goes to a central repository so that we can say what are our most popular reports and what are the reports that never get accessed. You know, I'm not saying delete your reports out of source control. I'm saying get them out of production so that if someone complains about it, you can put it back in production when they need it. But the smaller the report has, the smaller report numbers you have, you'll get an interesting benefit. And that is people will look at them. When there's 750 reports, it will be easier for the executive to ask you for a new report than it will be for them to look for themselves if there's one already there that will do it for them, right? I mean, isn't that interesting? Like, give them smaller options and they'll use what you have more often than if you overwhelm them with data. Because the reality is we don't have a reporting problem, we have a data explosion problem. We need to get our hands around it. Okay, that's it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed my 20 tips for today, and this was an hour well spent. I'm grateful that you came and hung out with me, and you know, feel free to ask me any questions. If you want to know how to get in contact with me, let me go back to my final slide, which is that's my blog, and I'm Ike Ellis, and you know, join me at Book Readers. We would love to have you. We want that thing to grow. We want to have a lot of people reading the same. You know, you guys are reading SQL books. You might as well read it with us so that we can answer questions and hang out together and be part of our Google group.
Ike, thank you for giving the presentation today. And we're going to have this recording on YouTube. And if y'all have any questions, think of anything, feel free to email myself or Ike, and I'll get it to Ike, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, Ike.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Rob.
I'm going to shut it down now. And I want to thank everybody for attending. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback during the presentation. They like it. And Ike actually, just FYI, said he would give another presentation later on in the year. So I'm going to take him up and thank him for doing that. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We're going to turn it off now. Talk to you later, Ike.
Yep, see you.
All right. Bye.